For more on Ahmadinejad's Latin America tour, I am joined by Eric Farnsworth. He is the vice president of an international business organization called Council of the Americas. Eric, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So in addition to him visiting Venezuela, he's going to go to Cuba and Ecuador and Nicaragua. The United States is painting this as a tour of desperation for an Iran that needs friends. Is that accurate?
Well, Iran does need friends, and Latin America has some friends of Iran. But this is a relationship that's been developing over the last several years. It's been facilitated primarily by Venezuela's Hugo Chavez, and the trip really was supposed to happen last September or so for at the time of the UN General Assembly. The cancer of President Chavez postponed that, and now with the inauguration of the Nicaraguan president, it gives a good opportunity for the Iranian leader to go through Latin America once again.
Now, some have speculated that there is a sinister alliance between Iran and some of these countries, that they are working on an enriched uranium program, that they're developing weapons together. Is there any truth to that? And what is the nature of Iran's relationship with these countries?
It's certainly a marriage of political convenience. In other words, they need each other. President Chavez of Venezuela is looking for allies outside the region. He really does see himself as a leader of a sort of an anti-American, counter-revolutionary internationalist, if you will. And the Iranians, of course, are looking for allies to break out of the sanctions regime that has recently been announced and that, frankly, has been tightening for some time. But in terms of the actual cooperation, there's a lot of smoke there. We're not sure how much fire there really is. Lots of talk about agreements and arms transfers and various uranium mining and things like that, and that's possible. That could be occurring, but nobody really seems to know. One thing that we do know, though, is that there does seem to be some financial transactions that are going through Venezuela and Ecuador and other banks that the Iranians seem to be using, if not to bust sanctions, at least to make their international financial operations a little bit easier for themselves.
What kind of financial situations are we talking about, and is it to a degree that it would be troubling to an organization like yours?
Well, not necessarily to my organization one way or the other, but certainly to the U.S. government and to the U.S. Department of Justice, which has sanctioned actually a number of financial institutions in Venezuela and elsewhere because of these ties. So they certainly are ways to, for example, finance Hezbollah and other terrorist activities, at least according to the United States government.
As important as the places he's going are, it's also important the places he's not going. He's not going to Chile or Argentina or Brazil. What does that signal?
You know, that's really a good point. And Brazil is the key there, because the last time he came through Latin America, he visited Brasilia with President Lula in power, and there was a big, almost celebration, and President Lula, of course, went to Tehran as well. Since then, Brazil has a new leader, and President Dilma Rousseff is less impressed, perhaps, with the Iranian regime because of the human rights issues. She was a former guerrilla herself. She was tortured by the Brazilian regime back in the 1970s, so she has a different view of some of these human rights issues, not as impressed necessarily by the Iranians. And the Brazilians say this was really never part of his trip this time, but you're absolutely right. The Brazil-Iranian situation is one that has had diplomatic relations, commercial relations, certainly agricultural relationships, but at this point it does seem like the Brazilians are looking to kind of downgrade that, certainly at the political level.
All right. Eric Farnsworth, Vice President of the Council of the Americas, thanks a lot for talking with us
tonight. Thanks for having me.
Meanwhile, President Chavez said his country won't recognize the decisions of an international